Positive Lens Podcasts. I'm your host, Scott T. Each week, we will bring you positive law enforcement news stories from across the globe, shared by departments and citizens like yourself. In our Getting to Know Your Local Leo segment, we will speak with a member of the law enforcement community about everyday life and most things non-law enforcement, as we hope to adjust your focus so you see that members of your local law enforcement community are not much different than you and me.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 31. In this Getting to Know Your Local Leo two-part episode, you will meet recently elected Sheriff Eric Kirsch, the Sheriff of Wabaunsee County, Kansas. He's a former Marine Corps captain who completed several active duty combat deployments in Afghanistan and Iraq. During his 8 years with Wabaunsee County, prior to taking office in 2025, he served as the deputy, detective sergeant, and undersheriff. He's a proud husband, father, and one of the most effective social media sheriffs you will find. In part one, we talk about his previous aspiring music career, the importance of being authentic, and the key factors that led to him relocating to Kansas. We also learn about his favorite childhood memory with his dad, the movie that inspired him to get into law enforcement, and how he overcame self-induced alcoholism. Plus, he shares what may be a big surprise to many about who was his most reliable news source when he was deployed. Let's get started. Please welcome to the podcast the Sheriff of Wabaunsee County, Kansas, Sheriff Eric Kirsch.
Hi, everybody.
It's great to have you with us today, sir. I believe actually you're the first sheriff of a particular county to be on the Getting to Know Your Local Leo. So that's the cool part. Yeah, first sheriff. We've had police officers, but first sheriff.
Okay. Hey, come on, sheriffs. Come on.
That's right.
Come on, get on with Scott. This is the place to be.
I tell you, and I think it's pretty cool because we connected, I think, originally because you had did a story on Captain Lisa Davis.
Yeah.
How she, and I'm still mesmerized by the fact that performing.
She saved the baby.
Yeah, which, like 10 minutes of CPR?
Something like that. Yeah. Hero stuff.
Yeah, unbelievable.
She's a hero. She's awesome.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I brought that up to the nurses I work with at the college, and I said to them, hey, listen, I said, how do you perform 9 minutes of CPR on a baby? They said, Scott, performing 9 minutes of CPR on anybody is difficult, but let alone on the baby. And I think the baby is a few months old. So it's unreal.
I think so, yeah. If it wasn't for her and the other officer with St. Mary's, Kansas Police Department, yeah, that poor baby would have died. So
yeah, completely different story. So yeah, that was phenomenal. I know I commented on that and I reported that story out, and you responded back. So it was pretty cool.
Well, thank you for having me, though. I appreciate it. Thanks for getting me out of bed on a Saturday morning. I'm trying to sleep in. I got to do a podcast.
Well, we want to make sure that we're up and early, getting out there, having fun.
That's fine. Yeah.
Now I know you're in the office today, so it is a Saturday morning, but you don't get to sleep.
That's okay. We're always on call, right? Typically.
Yeah, never sleep.
I would say the worst of us are always on call, right?
That's the punishment.
Yeah.
So, hopping into it, so just tell us a little about yourself. Where you born? Where you raised? I know you're in Kansas now, but that's not where you came from. So tell us more about that.
I was born in Texas, raised in New York. My parents are both from the Upper West Side. I went to high school at Don Bosco Prep in Bergen County, New Jersey, and I received a 4-year ROTC scholarship to the Citadel. It's the military college of South Carolina.
Okay.
And went there for school, commissioned in the Marine Corps in 2004. Did tours to Iraq in 2006, 7, 8, Afghanistan in 2011, and then I was a contractor in Kurdistan in 2014 and 15, and now I'm in Kansas. It's awesome. Got to see the world, came back to a place I never thought I'd be, let alone be a sheriff at, right? So.
Well, tell us about that. How did you end up in Kansas? I mean, the Marine Corps, certainly I know you have some stories from that area, but Kansas is a very different place from New York, Texas. So how did you end up in Kansas?
Two girls. So my ex and I amicably divorced in 2015, and she came out here to be with family. And I could be a cop anywhere, but I had to be a dad here. So
right.
I knew too many. I think anyone in any emergency service, firefighters, cops, military, we all know the guys and gals that choose the job, and the job's not there for you when you're on your deathbed.
Correct.
Right? It's just not. And I didn't want to. It's easy. It's a tempting thing to just pour your life's work into the job, but that's only part of it. That's not even half of it. So you need to have that fulfillment, and I needed to be near my daughter. So I came out here, and then I had mutual friends with my current significant other, who was a former Black Hawk pilot, and now she's an attorney in a local town. We don't work in the same jurisdiction, so it works. But yeah, my better half fed me, and she said, "You'll do," and I never left. So
Nice. And, like I said, and I really applaud you for what you did, because you could have very easily, like I said, pour everything into being in the police role and forgetting about the fatherhood part of it. But
sure,
being a father, your daughter, you're there for her, and you set an example that she sees now, right? As she grows up, she knows you've been there. So I really
so we're adults. My ex and I are still very close, and I'm friends with her new husband, and all of us were military. So our daughter, we don't co-parent, we're all parents, and he's an Army retiree. He's an MP. He's been around the world, and he's a deputy with a task force. He's deputized federal now in Missouri, the next state over. So all four of our daughter's parents are essentially military. Both of her dads are cops. So I'm really nervous, because she keeps saying that she wants to go into the military, and then she wants to get into law enforcement, and I'm scared because I don't want her to. But it's a story for another time, I think.
she should be more scared about trying to bring her boyfriend home someday.
I'm not worried about that. No, Scott. No, I'm not. No, I'm not worried about her at all. She's been a boxer for 5 years. She could take anyone's head off, including me, probably. We had her out 2 weekends ago, and she ran up to me, gave me a hug, and it was like a python. I was like, Jesus, take it easy. It was rather. She's like a block of wood, and that's from hitting the bag for 5 years and getting in the ring and fighting, and training.
No more young daddy's little girl squeezing you.
We're not always going to be there. Part of my philosophy is like, prepare and equip everybody, because don't rely on any one point of or any one entity to come rescue you, right? Be that your family or the police or law enforcement. Be prepared. Doesn't mean you can't rely on someone else, but it has to come. Have adequate, basic, fundamental preparation for kind of anything. Yeah. So with children, train them to not fight, but get into combatives or sports, so they understand that they can achieve something. Here in Kansas, at least, we're very second Pro A, 2A.
Yes.
So we're going to host our inaugural concealed carry classes, and then we're going to do skill set classes, so I can train our constituents to, whatever they need to do lawfully with their firearms, good to go. So we're going to bring some cool guy friends of mine that were former Navy Squid SEAL dudes and some Green Beret guys and Rangers, and we're going I want my community to be as strong as possible, right? The same thing for my family. I want my family to be as strong as possible. So yeah, let's go box, let's go fight. We don't want to fight, but someone has to know how, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to be the one starting it. You just need to be the one finishing
sure.
it. So, far cry from growing up in New York City. How has been that to adapt from New York City to Kansas?
Rockland County. Rockland County.
Okay, so north of New York City, about a county or two.
Yeah, about 20 minutes drive time if there's no traffic, but obviously there's always traffic.
Right.
But it was great because I spent a lot of time in the city growing up. I love the Bronx the most. I don't know why. The Bronx is my favorite, probably because I love Big Pun.
Well, also if you celebrate Halloween, the Bronx is notorious for setting up some amazing Halloween decorations.
Yeah. The boogie down Bronx, everything's just kind of, it's real, right? it's just real. I just appreciate the authenticity of the Bronx. It's my favorite place, other than Kansas, obviously. But shout out to the boogie down Bronx. Because I think that that's where my happy spot is. Because my dad would take me to the old Yankee Stadium, right? And I think hanging out with your father and your uncles when you're a kid and watching Don Mattingly, beat the living hell out of the Yankee or the Red Sox.
Donnie Baseball.
Donnie Baseball, right? So.
Interesting fact, he has a birthday coming up next week.
Does he?
Well, actually, a week and a day. My aunt growing up, huge Yankees fan, was her favorite ball player. And I don't know why I've always remembered it, but April 20th was his birthday. So I always heard about it every year that it was Don Mattingly's birthday. So
he's the best. He's the best. Remember that handlebar mustache he had?
Absolutely.
Right? Well,
The only one that Steinbrenner let wear, I think, facial hair for a long time.
Well, I don't think he had a choice. I think he went into Steinbrenner's office and said, "You're not doing anything. You're not touching this mustache." and old George was like, "Yeah, no, you got it, Donnie. No problem. Just go out there with them Red Sox, you know."
Yep, and he did. That was phenomenal. I think he had an outstanding career. I mean, cut short because of injuries, but
sure.
Outstanding career. And he had success managing early on. I mean, lately it's been a little bit rough for him, but
yeah, he's got a beautiful legacy that he created there, and a lot of ball players looked up to him and still do, because he's a player's player as a coach. Yeah. And even with, look at Jeter too. I mean, he took Jeter under his wing, and now Jeter's sort of the god, the Jay-Z of baseball, right?
Yeah, he is. I mean, you don't even have to be a fan of the Yankees to respect Jeter. It's just exactly. How he carried himself for 20 years.
What a gentleman, overall, and not like a prissy gentleman, but just just a solid guy, just a good dude. Like if your daughter brought him home, you'd be like, all right,
all right, yeah, I'll accept him.
Move over. I want to talk to him first. Yeah. Go take a hike. I'm gonna hang out with this guy.
Absolutely. But then you talked about going to Yankee Stadium as a kid. It's again classic stadium. That was one of the things I always wanted to do and go there before they tore it down, which was great. But were you involved in a lot of sports as a kid? Activities? What did you do?
I did, obviously T-ball. That was fun. T-ball was good. East Coast version of football was lacrosse. That was the midfielder. I love lacrosse. It's hockey without ice. It's the parents on the sideline. Let's go to the opposing team. Let's go, Billy. Bam! Smash Billy. What's up, Mom? I got your son. Take his ball and go get it, score a goal. I loved lacrosse because there was just kinetic. It didn't stop. It was brutal. It was a combat sport. It has its origins in Native American sports history. We're playing in a land, the upper Hudson, the Hudson River Valley, with the Iroquois and the Huron, and lacrosse was a Native American sport. So it was great to see that adopted and still being played. It's very popular, obviously, as you know, especially on Long Island. A lot of our rivals were out there. But I was a swimmer, and I did wrestling for a little while, but predominantly swimming and lacrosse were my two great loves growing up.
Yeah, and the thing about lacrosse, like you said, people don't realize even Jim Brown, one of the football greats of all time, went to Syracuse on a lacrosse scholarship.
Yeah.
And then obviously turned out to be pretty good NFL football player.
He was an Orange man, right, at Syracuse? Yeah.
He was, yeah. So, you had these memories growing up as a child, great things with, you said, going to the stadium with your dad, playing in the events, tournaments, traveling. But if you were to go back and say, favorite memory of the child, if you had to pick one, is there one that stands out more than the rest?
Yeah, just holding my dad's hand as we were walking up to the dugout area at Yankee Stadium, without a doubt.
That is outstanding.
That dark corridor as it opens up into the light and the crowd, you can hear the roar of the crowd. And, pitching for the New York Yankees. Now, but the echo announcer and smell.
What's his last name? Shepard was his first name. Last name. He was the same announcer for like 40 years for them.
He had that great newsreel voice,
Yeah.
Great. Here we have the Marines landing on Tinian, and here they are taking out the Japanese pillboxes. How's it going, Sergeant? Well, the war is tough, but the Marines are tougher. The Marines are always tougher, right? Now, Donnie baseball. It was just that's my New York, that's my version of what it was. It was sort of unapologetic and strong, a lot of humor and sarcasm and profanity and authenticity. There wasn't any of the passive aggression. It was, conflict, not terrible conflict, but you had to figure stuff out to do anything. You wanted to travel, you had to figure out the subway system and come out of that process unscathed. Just getting over bridges and tunnels and highways and moving through traffic and moving through apartment. Trying to find an apartment. It's not an easy task. So
no,
right from a young age, it's everything sort of like a challenging adventure, right?
It is, and it's. I don't think people realize it until they've even been there, and sometimes they go there for the first time, and they're just in awe. You see people looking up at the skyscrapers and whatnot, but just the sheer magnitude of volume taking place on a daily basis and the amount of people moving around, I think people just starstruck is the wrong word for it, but they get paralyzed, and it's like that. How is all this happening? How can you navigate this on a daily basis without feeling overwhelmed? And I think there's a preparedness that comes out of that, because you're literally living in organized chaos when you're in the streets in New York or underground, right? Because of the subways.
It's deliberate. You're right, though. But if you are in that environment or around it often, you are, I think, strengthened vicariously by being there. Yeah. It's like a whetstone of life. You sharpen your own blade by trying to not get eaten and consumed by all that, right? We're caught up because
we're caught up in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's easy to, if you're in certain lifestyles, or for me at least, I was a failed punk rocker for a while there too. My idiot friends and I couldn't play anything, and we were really good at playing, not having any talent, and had on the way of maybe getting a record deal, and never panned out, obviously, but had a good time playing in the Bowery, playing in different community colleges and dive bars, things like that as teenagers. As idiot knuckle, yeah, it was great.
What were you playing? What was your
I didn't play
somewhat
anything.
Instrument, we'll call it.
I was the front man of the Stones, and just the Stones, and we were terrible. We were absolutely terrible. I hope there's a recording out there somewhere, but it was good crap. It was good catchy hooks. We wanted to be a mix of like the Clash and the Ramones and a little bit of MC5. But never obviously made it. But talk about like the cultural undercurrent, we would continuously run into people that kind of almost made it and were consumed by heroin, right?
Okay.
Or their other addictions, and it was like, whoa! And these were characters, and they weren't evil characters or antagonists. That was just sort of like the cautionary tale of their time had ended, and they were still fighting the fight, so to speak. It was weird being a teenager in the 90s and seeing like punk rockers from the 70s still trying to, and 80s, and I admired their spirit and their passion, but it's like, hey, Reagan's not the president anymore. You don't have to worry about it. The Cold War ended.
Yeah.
Maybe focus on yoga instead of being angsty and stuff. Like I'm worried about your cortisol levels, man. Let's get you into some stop doing heroin. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. Those rockers from the 70s and 80s, some of them are still trying to perform now.
Oh well, look at the actual Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
They've been performing 6 decades,
which is unbelievable. Yeah.
Mick Jagger does, I think, two 1-hour workouts every day. I think he's in his early 80s.
In 70s or 80s, yeah.
Late 70s, and he looks fantastic, and he's doing it, and he's doing it right. It's crazy. Who would have thought, right?
It is, and I tell you, I'm a fan of Kiss as well. And,
me too. Yeah.
They came out of New York also, and there's that misconception everyone views them as this crazy rock band, but truthfully, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley kept the brand clean. I mean, Peter Criss, Ace Frehley, there were some other issues there, sure, obviously, but Gene Simmons is often talked about. He doesn't touch alcohol.
No, famously, yeah, he's sober. He's got other vices, obviously.
Yeah, exactly, 10,000 plus.
Obviously, he's got other vices, but I love Kiss too. I'm still waiting for their last tour, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like everyone else.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the things that it's a misconception, right? Because there you have a rock band that, because of the makeup, because of the way they put on the show, there's a perception that they are all into something bad, and really. Again, Peter Criss and Ace Frehley are part of the original four. But the reason they were out of that band on a couple of stints is because they were tied to things that Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley weren't endorsing.
Sure.
Very impressive. And I think that you said, going back to the whole point of that story was, you were seeing it in the 90s where people were hanging out in the 70s and what they were being drawn into. And you were able to stay out of.
Everybody wants a mission and should have a mission in life. Sometimes that mission is really hard to find. And sometimes the mission is you have to divorce yourself from what you thought it was, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know, back in the day, like the FDA was at war against like egg white or egg yolk, right? First it was egg whites, don't eat it, it's bad for you. And two minutes later it was don't eat the yolk, it's bad for you. Cholesterol is bad for you. And then it turned out all to be nonsense, or let's bring down whatever. But you have to think let's talk about real quick again, Kiss. Yeah. And the Stones is testaments of longevity, right? In a good way. And yeah, There are a lot of things, but they've been doing what they love to do for a long time, and they're still relevant, right?
Like you said, decades, 5 decades, 6 decades.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
I'm 43. Life is, I'm going to quote True Detective Russ Cole said, life is barely long enough to get good at anything, so get careful at what you get good at, right?
Yeah.
But there's a power to, and another great quote from Matthew McConaughey in this series is, after all these years, I know who I am, and there's a certain level of, I forget what he said, power, comfort, or strength in that. But, yeah, and then again, when Kiss took their make off, everyone was like, put it back on!
Put it back on.
Put it back on!
Yeah, I think that album was it not Carnival Souls, what was that? I think maybe Carnival Souls, one of their albums when they had the makeup off too, one of the later albums, and it was just not the same. Same music, but didn't have the same vibe, didn't have the same look.
It didn't, yeah, because I think they had a little bit more of rambunctious attitude because they had that mask on, right? They could get away, a little bit extra confidence because they could be goofy and silly and more, bring it, instead of just, that's, it was minor, but enough for us to notice, I think, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
But speaking with decades, so if you had your chance to go back and relive your life as a new generation, what generation is that? What decade are you growing up in? Where are you thriving?
Me?
Yeah, if you could go back.
I'm going to be a child that survived the Great Depression, and then I'm going to join the Marine Corps after December 7th, and then go off to the Pacific and hope to survive with my friends.
Okay.
I'm serious. I'm crazy. I'm a crazy person. I always had a weird fascination with, not necessarily warfare, but like conflict. And the reasons why it starts, for the first and foremost, I was a history major in college. I'm still a voracious reader. A lot of my literary diet is a lot of history books still. History books and leadership. But yeah, it's just to answer your question. I go on tangents like you. I'm a New Yorker, and I just go down these tangents, so keep me on track. But yeah, if I were growing up in a different time, it would probably be Depression era America, and because I think about the greatest generation and those men and women, they survived the Great Depression. We had the Dust Bowl.
Yes.
And then World War II, right?
We'll just throw that in there.
Hey kid, happy 18th birthday. By the way, the Japanese exist, and so does Nazi Germany. We got jobs for you. Let's go. You wanted jobs, here we go. Good luck.
Yeah. And what's unique about that generation, and I think it's a microcosm of some of the issues we have probably today, is that I like to say they lived an easier life in a sense that it was simpler, because they didn't have all the social media. They didn't have the 24-hour news cycle. Because major news events they would find out about, they lived a difficult life in terms of what they had to, it wasn't a hard life, and things weren't easy for them. But the simplicity of life was there, that they could actually enjoy the company of a person in front of them. They would make time and enjoyment and activities out of things that were not lavish. They appreciated all those small things. And, nowadays, we have phones or computers, everything that happens, we know in seconds. But is it really changing our day to know in seconds versus the old times? They found out on the evening news cycle. They found it on the radio. They found out in the next day's newspaper. Yeah.
I'm a bit of a contrarian. I think that, we don't have the luxury of really judging. I think I've spoken to a lot of World War II veterans. I've spoken to a lot of Korean veterans predominantly. And I asked them certain questions, and a lot of times they lament a simpler time, like you discussed, but some of them did speak about the lack of truth that they realized later, or things that appeared to be something that they weren't, right? Yeah. They lamented for their sense of innocence when it comes to belief in institutions, be that the church or the government, or what's that great quote? You don't love your country, but you don't like your government. Something like that. Yeah. I don't remember a time of I remember Peter Jennings. Remember him?
Yeah, the old anchor.
The old anchor, yeah. He was my Walter Cronkite. So when Peter Jennings said something, I believed it because it was probably true, right?
Right.
And now, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. Seriously, yeah, you're on your own. I think, listen, I never got strafed by Japanese Zeros, but I think trying to figure out where truth is it's not a mortal threat to your life, but
Right.
if you're searching for truth and authenticity, you have as much of a chance as not getting shot by lies and mistruths as you would by getting strafed on a beach at Midway, right? So
It's tough now because, like you said, you see stuff on social media, you see stuff on the news cycles, and it's really, you can go to 5 different stations, 5 different websites, 10, whatever, you name the number, and you're going to have different information. And you have, like I said, you have to be your own fact checker. And we have fact checkers out there who have to be fact checked themselves. And like the credibility of the media, and it's not a political statement, right? It's just very different. The credibility of the media and those reporting what's online is just very different from what it used to be. But
Robert,
even then,
Robert Hyland's quote from Starship Troopers, and it's also in the movie, figuring things out for yourself is the only true freedom anyone really has. You got to use that freedom.
Yeah.
So, and there's a certain virtue in doing that, in the seek for truth. When you go out and you absorb, it's weird to say, but here's my opinion. Our most reliable source of news when we were deployed was from Al Jazeera.
I've heard that many times, and it's unique to me because they're the enemy.
No, not necessarily. They just have the least amount of incentive in being pro anything Western, period. And reliably and consistently, they report the facts. And is there spin? Is there inference in it? Yeah, but there's not a lot of invective. There's not a terrible amount of dead carbs in the information that they're pumping out. They're not trying to sell you anything typically. That's the thing, and it's weird. So when you do a stress test to check the veracity of information, I was a counterintelligence officer. We relied on human sources as a human source intelligence, MOS, and our most reliable information came from multiple sources of corroboration. So different people that didn't know each other saying the same thing. It's more likely that information that we're receiving is accurate, right, because it's multiple source corroboration versus information coming from just one source that seemed legit, but upon further inspection fell apart when you pressed any scrutiny to it, right? So,
right, yeah.
Yeah, but the media, this is what I love about podcasts, because I, Eric, in Kansas, get to hang out with Scott in New Mexico, and we have a conversation. My phone is not off, but it's on silent, right, and I get to talk to you, and it's nuanced, and there's context, and that's why people love podcasts these days, because these sound clips. I have a great relationship with the local media here and around Topeka, Kansas, because I believe in freedom of the press. I'm all about it. But there's such pressure when you're on camera in a studio and you've got this limited amount of time, and I don't like it, and I don't think I'm going to be doing much of it in the future because I feel like a prop.
Yeah.
And I'm not for sale, and I don't feel like I need to be used, and I don't think it's being used, but it's like I'm not a soundbite. Sometimes I have a lot to say, and most of the time I don't have anything to say, right? Right?
Yeah.
A wise man once said nothing. I love that quote too. But there's such an elegance with this long form conversations, and I think that's why people gravitate towards it, because you can take the time to actually sit and have a meaningful exchange.
I agree, and like I said, and you're also and I've had to do some segments with the college I work with, and I've on TV, and like I said, you try to capture as much as you can in that short, brief moment of time, but you have no control of the production either. So,
Scott, I've given interviews before on the news that were 10, 20 minutes, and they put in 20 seconds.
Right.
It's tough. I'm like, God, at least it's weird. It's like lending someone you barely know your car and hoping everything will come out right. It's like, God, this is an unnecessary risk. I'm not comfortable doing this, right? So, yeah.
But, let's talk a little about what you do, actually, though, because you have probably been one of the most dynamic social media sheriffs I've seen. So you utilize, actually, the social media to communicate with your community, to communicate across the country, and you do a phenomenal job utilizing that platform. Was that always your style, or was it because once you became sheriff, you decided to bring it to it?
No, my predecessor gave me the keys to the Facebook page, I asked him, are you sure? And he goes, yeah, go ahead. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay. And yep, it took off. It's weird. I watched a lot of the Kids in the Hall, the Canadian version of SNL. Essentially, it was the greatest skit comedy. It was always on Comedy Central. I watched a ton of early Saturday Night Live, a ton of South Park. I love, as New Yorkers, we're very sarcastic, and verbal wit is a currency, right? You have to be sarcastic to survive in social. It could save your life too. Just talking out of situations, or
right.
talking your way into opportunities, right?
Absolutely.
But no, but the foundational basis, my job is to really be a good communicator. And I use Facebook as a sort of like a report card to my parents, the public. I don't think that unless it's an active, sensitive investigation, I don't think there's anything that should be withheld from the public. I'm a big fan of Long Island Audit. I don't know if you follow that guy.
I have not, no.
He's a First Amendment auditor out of Long Island, and he basically does stress tests. He goes into Suffolk County or Nassau police departments on the island, or he'll go to Pennsylvania State Police Trooper barracks, and he'll ask for certain information, and he's testing to see if they're literate. He'll film the interior of the lobbies, and some agencies knock it out of the park, and some don't, and they come out and they grab his camera and they detain him, and they thug up on him, and he then sues them and wins, and he ignites the discussion of the First Amendment. Because as I'm the government, and I know what's best for you, right? But I better be literate on the Constitution and the constitutional amendments that are your God-given birthrights, right? So, but Facebook, that's town square, and you have to disseminate information, and you have to be authentic. Period. People are tired, including me, of nonsense and bullshit. People see right through it.
Yeah.
So now it's my turn, like the Goonies said, it's our turn now, right? Right now it's our turn. Down here, up there, it's their time, but down here it's our time. I'm at bat right now. I'm not here to bunt. I'm not here to strike out. I'm here to reliably hit. Like Kiss, reliable hits. Right? So my greatest partner is the public. So if we need help, which is often from other agencies or the public, it was weird. I think there's a generational shift too. There's a lot of new leaders in law enforcement that are. I'm 43, and there's more our age group that are rising to leadership roles that have a different perspective and worldview and attitudes towards social media. It's not something to be scared of. I'm working with 4 other agencies in Kansas right now with their PIOs, and some of my guidance is very simple. If you're funny, be funny. If you're not funny, don't try to be funny. It's going to backfire. If you love information, numbers, and analytics, do that. Whatever you're good at naturally, do that. But it's civic service, it's public service. We're here to provide emergency services to the public, or a number of different things. So, and I'll be damned if I don't have fun at work. We spend a lot of time, in every job. And I love my job. I love the people I work with. I have an incredible team. We're fully staffed for a reason. The people want to work here. I'm very blessed to have the people that I do around me. That was one of pre-crazy Rudy Giuliani's tenets of surround yourself with good people. I can't do a damn thing by myself. So, and it's been weird and wonderful seeing the Facebook explode the way it has. When I took over the account, we had about 5,000 followers, and we just passed 30,000, and that's with $0 invested. We don't do ads, just me and my cell phone, and typing from the heart, and just being real. Can I curse on this show? Is that okay?
Yeah, it is.
People are tired of bullshit, and I won't continue that trend. Period. People see right through it. Like here in Kansas, they're country, but they're I don't know a single dummy here. I'm sure they're out there. But country doesn't mean stupid. These people successfully manage very complicated businesses that have to deal with growing crops and livestock. It's an incredible, it's a chess game, and they know nonsense when they see it, and I'm not going to contribute to that on a national level. And our Facebook it's weird. I've been, in different states now, Delaware, Colorado, just on hunting trips and seeing friends and family, and I'll get into conversations, and I've met people in other states who have been like, oh, are you? Yes, oh my God. And it's like, it's weird, but
to go to the number you said, the 5,000 to 30,000, to put some context on that, you haven't been the sheriff that long.
No, 3 months.
So, when you think about that, you've grown viewership of over almost 8,000 new followers a month in 3 months. I mean, that's without promoting it other than being authentic in your communication. And like I said, that's how, again, we connected because of the story with...
That took 2 years, yeah, just to be specific. That took 2 years from 5,000. I was the undersheriff before I was elected. Okay. And so I ran the page when I was the undersheriff for a year and a half, almost 2 years. But we would average about, there was one post that went viral, 3-4 months into it, and it got 4 million people. The total reach on it was 4 million people, and it was I wrote it in bed before, it was for a road closure prior to a concert. We didn't want people taking their GPS down this unimproved gravel road because a lot of these people were coming. It was a beautiful event called the Symphony of the Flint Hills, and a lot of the people attending the event were coming from nice counties, and they would have vehicles.
Cars.
Yeah, exactly. BMWs and Lexuses, sedans, and S-Class Mercedes, and this road that their GPS would take them down was essentially a goat path. So I made this post say, don't go down this road, comedy, don't go down the road, comedy, and I posted it, took a shower, went out to the event. By the time I got there, about an hour and a half later, there was a mixture of awe and anger from some people. some of the event organizers were not happy with me because the post was exploding and everybody was talking about it. And it was the Headwaters Road post, and that really kind of put us on the map. And I wrote it in bed in like 5 minutes, and it was not different than any other post I ever. It's weird. Some posts go viral and some don't, and some posts that I think will go like this. I know, getting
This
high
is a good one. I know it's going to happen.
Like Notorious B.I.G. said, never get high on your own supply, right? But I'm like, this is the one. This one's going up. We're gonna go up, and nothing. And then others I write and post and ghost, and 2 hours later my phone blows up. Like, dude, your post was hilarious. Like, what? Which one? Oh, the one from today. Oh, I didn't think twice about it, and then it just explodes with popularity, and it's weird. The algorithm's a strange thing.
But you actually use that not just for law enforcement posts. You actually, I call it a public service announcement for individuals over 40. The other day, you had a post about Thursday morning. You had a nice intimate date with the doctor.
When I talked to junior leaders, when I talked to junior officers in the Marine Corps back in the day, when I talked to junior cops and like new lieutenants, new sergeants in law enforcement, my whole thing is show your scars. If you want to get anywhere with anybody, you have to relate and build rapport and show a commonality. So yeah, I just got my first colonoscopy, and it's very important because I don't want people to die of cancer. So go get checked out. Go do it. Support your local GI professionals and go get checked out because colon cancer seems rather terrible.
Yeah.
So, but how do you? There's a big difference with posting. Go get a colonoscopy and like, whoa, that was. Let's play some George Michael, Careless Whisper, and make eye contact.
I was going to ask you, did you end up playing it?
I didn't. No, I wussed out. And I felt bad for the staff because they had to deal with me anyway. Because I'm a talker. And I'm pretty sure the anesthesiologist was like, "Thank God he's quiet now. He's passed out."
Did you read any of the comments that some people wrote back on it?
A little bit.
So I have to share with one of the comments of somebody who it was comical. And I'm going to paraphrase it, and I don't remember their name off the top of my head, but they had some leftover stickers, I guess, from St. Patrick's Day, and they were going for a colonoscopy, and their doctor had a sense of humor, so they put one that said like "good luck" on their butt cheek. So when I was like, but that's you're connecting with the folks, and not even all these aren't even all people from Kansas, like you said. These are people across the country now. So you're humanizing yourself and the badge, and you're showing that, hey, listen, we can have fun. We enforce the law.
Yeah.
We're police, but we serve, and we have a good time doing it. And I think you're opening up that door, and you've done that with not just the community, but your officers. You have modernized some of Kansas police things. You have officers wearing jeans. You have officers growing their beards. Tell us, how did you come to that realization of taking that approach?
Years ago, I was standing in a field surrounded by cows, and I was wearing our old uniform, which was the black 511 tactical pants, the tactical everything. And I was standing in this field full of cows and going, this is the dumbest thing ever. What the hell are we doing here? And so when I finally had the authority to make changes with the uniforms, I did away with the 511s. I did away with it. And I replaced the tactical pants with Ariat jeans because we want to look like the people that we serve.
Right.
Right? When I was in Afghanistan, I had a beard because most Afghan men have beards. It's a sign of masculinity. We had a lot of interface with Afghans, be them captured Taliban or the local Afghan National Security Forces. They all had beards, so we wanted to, when in Rome, right, look like the people that you're working with.
Right.
And if you want to be taken seriously, you have to make sacrifices. So, and that was a bit of a risk, and it wasn't anything I lost sleep over. But it was like, when I had the authority to do it, the sheriff was good enough to let me do it. And the shit we caught was from other sheriffs who were pissed off because their deputies wanted to start wearing jeans too, right?
But you're not sacrificing anything though, because I think you highlighted the fact that while they're wearing jeans, they're wearing a beard, they're also still receiving more training hours than the state requires. They're receiving the tactical gear that's required. So there's nothing being lost on them, but they're feeling probably better about what they're wearing. And also the community they're serving is relatable again.
If I had people locally come in mass, there legitimately hasn't been a single complaint in like ever about the jeans, like ever. It literally hasn't happened. If I had, say, more than 10 people reliably come in going, the jeans are unprofessional, we don't like it, we want you guys to revert, I will listen to them. It doesn't mean I'm going to make a change based off of that, complaint process. It just hasn't materialized, and people are fine with it or they don't care. It's one of the two. And it's not like everyone's going, woo, it's awesome, it's awesome. It's thumbs up, but I think for the prevailing attitude is that looks good, because it is about how you look sometimes. You need to be confident. You need to be competent. You need to be capable. And you can still do that with visible tattoos, with a trimmed beard or goatee. Yeah. You can do it in jeans. We were operating at a very incredibly professional and proficient level in Afghanistan, wearing Carhartt jeans, beard, and Guns N' Roses t-shirts sometimes. Sorry. Yep. I watched plenty of people calling air on station wearing Beavis and Butthead t-shirts that were crisp, calm, controlled, and cool on the radio. It's about a lot of things, but if you're relying only on your uniform or only on authority, like for me at least, the badge that's my sort of my symbol of this. I'm responsible. I take responsibility for my community. Yeah. It's not authority based. It's not force first. It's everything we do is based on people and your demeanor and how you treat people. And I want to take you seriously. I want to learn about you, and I want to know what's going on. Seek first to understand, and trying to figure out the reasons why things are happening. Or that's the one common denominator in this job is people. And if you can't relate to people, find something else to do.
Yeah.
Because it's muscles and guns are cool, and fast cars are cool, but it's not enough. If you can't get down on your knee and talk to a kid, or sit Indian style with a child, or relate, be they children in need of care to pedophiles, you better be comfortable with a lot being uncomfortable and talking to people. That's it. We emphasize that. Very passionate about that. I was a DOD interrogator. We had an incredible initial training in Dam Neck, Virginia, for a basic counterintelligence, human source intelligence school. And I've sat down with, and early on, I think being a New Yorker, it helps too, because you and I, right, we're talkers, right? You have to, it's forced upon you. it's hard to be an introvert in a populated area, right? You have
It is absolutely true.
and even if it's just like anecdotal, arbitrary. Hey, how you doing? Say hi for your mother for me, or whatever. Let's take your. Who's that? Nick. Damn it. He does the Mark. He was a SNL guy. He's the guy in the Lonely Island. He does that great impression of Mark Wahlberg. Hey, how's it going? Say hi for your mother for me. Like that whole. He has a perfect. Perfect Mark Wahlberg impression. Damn it, I'll remember his name when we get done recording. But you have to, you can be a community of one. You can have an open door for everybody.
Yeah.
Period. And it doesn't mean do I really give a shit about a pedophile 100%? Do I care about his whole life? No. Do I care enough about my job and the discipline that's required to execute a successful interrogation approach to elicit either a full admission, a partial admission, or a provable lie? Absolutely. Bet your ass. Yeah, mm-hmm. So I will take that time and get to know backgrounds and refine my craft. I watch all of my when I was a real cop, when I was a detective, I would watch every single interrogation I did for a felony crime, and I would write down all my mistakes, all the things I messed up on. Nothing crazy, just little things that I missed, timings, things that I should have done, and focus on that, improve upon that later. But that, because I owe it to that victim to get that admission, especially in major crimes, where it's evidence light, it's circumstantial, it's more of a, the only thing you might have is that admission from the suspect. So if that's what you need to gain a guilty plea or a conviction by a jury, you better be right, you better be perfect, because you owe it to that victim, that person that you're helping, to do your damn job. So
yeah, and the communication part it goes back to that, your ability to communicate with people regardless of who they are, what about the background. But I want to go to something you said in there, more on the fun side than the serious side of it. You mentioned the badge. Goes back to social media. You've actually have a little competition going out on the badge with social media, with the children.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So we, our patch, our uniform patch, we're just redesigning we really didn't have dress uniforms, and I'm a snob. I was a Marine. I think Marine Corps has the best damn uniforms ever.
Yeah,
sorry.
Here's the thing. I will say I'm a Navy biased person, but when it comes to the uniform, I always say the Marine dress clothes are the best. They really are.
I was in New York City. I forget where. It was in one of the train stations, or maybe the Empire State Building lobby. When I was a kid, I saw a Marine in dress blues and Toys for Tots, and I looked up at that guy and I was like, I don't know what that dude's all about, but I want to do whatever he's doing. And I think my mom or my dad said that's the United States Marine. I'm like, that's awesome, because I won't get a girlfriend if I don't wear that uniform one day. You know what I mean?
No, it is. It is the best uniform. That is for sure.
We had patches, and they're fine, but they're not even outdated. But I'm the newly elected sheriff, and I'm here to make improvements and change and help the community. And I'm all about, some people, I think, I'm fixated on unity and unifying, and I'm invested. I live here. This is my community. It's like I went off to war, and fought for our country, but I think I'm really fighting for my country now, being here, because this is my county. This is where I live. And how I can best do that is to solicit from the community, especially from the elementary schools. Hey kiddos, you want to design the new patch for the sheriff's office? And we had 90 submissions, right? And they're awful. Some of them, they're terrible. Hey, straight up, some of them are terrible. And the worse they are, the more I love them, because it's like, there's a David Lee Roth said this on the Joe Rogan podcast. It's something called wabi-sabi. It's something that's perfect because it's just a little fucked up, right? So those minor those imperfections of the weird heads on the buffalo, or the eagles that are all cross-eyed. I love it. I really love it, and it's real. And I think we've got 90 submissions, and we're going to put it up for a vote. And there's at least 5 definitively in the lead, so we're gonna round it up to the top 5, and then we'll pick a winner. And the patch, I'm pretty sure we're going to make the patch the way it was written by that child. And
I know there was some debate about that, so you are going to go that way.
100%. Why not? Why wouldn't we? Yeah. So, and what's better for me to have like a child molester arrested by a dude wearing or a lady deputy wearing a jacked up Wabaunsee County Sheriff's patch that was designed and like artistically drawn by a 6th grader or a 4th grader. There's some pure like Shakespearean Old Testament justice to that, and it's great. It's just wonderful. I mean, it's goofy because there's time to be serious and there's a time to have fun, and you can do both sometimes, right?
Yeah,
so,
I thought the patch idea is phenomenal. I think you're going to the community, you're going to, like I said, to the children, the people who really need to see that their engagement with law enforcement as well, right?
Sure.
They're seeing a positive experience with you. They're enjoying interacting with you and your staff and your team, and they're given an opportunity to make literally a permanent impression on every Wabaunsee County Sheriff's Office walking around.
Yeah.
And that's pretty awesome. I thought it was cool.
Plus, I'm cheap. I'm trying to save the taxpayers money, so I don't have to contract some damn graphic artist. Because I had a few people reach out and be like, "Hey, for the low price of $3,000, I could drum some nonsense graphic, whatever." I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm gonna just, try to take advantage of the local talents that we have in place from residents of the county that we serve here."
And you get better buy-in from that because it is the people you serve.
Mm-hmm.
You said you didn't outsource it to some other person.
Yeah, because if I get some another cop or something making fun of ragging on our patch, like, where are you making fun of a kid, man? What the hell? seems like bullying behavior to me, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. But you mentioned literary quotes. You are not shy to put quotes on Facebook as well.
Mm-hmm.
Put it on social media. Is there a quote that stands out in your mind every day that you try to live by?
No, I don't know. I mean, it kind of depends on the moment and the mood.
All right, so
that's my honest response.
No, that's cool. But and I know you reference a lot of movies. So if we're to break down, what are your top 5 movies? As you say, I have the day to watch my top 5 movies. What are you putting on?
Number 1's going to be Aliens, James Cameron, 1986. I know probably everything there is. I'm a fanatic for. Like my first lady crush was Lieutenant Ellen Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver. In Alien, serious. When she from Alien, I think it was 1979. Ridley Scott was that director on that movie. So yeah, to get back on track, probably Aliens, Alien, Die Hard, Master and Commander, and like a tie between Last of the Mohicans and Taxi Driver.
Nice.
Probably, yeah. I don't know.
So there's a question that always comes out about Die Hard. What season is Die Hard celebrated in?
Oh, it's a Christmas movie.
It's Christmas. Everyone's like, it's a Christmas movie.
But it's an everyday thing too. I mean, that's the reason why I became a cop. I hate to say it. It's kind of embarrassing in a way. And I've had other people ask me like, "Why'd you get into law enforcement?" Like, I watched Die Hard, and they're waiting for like the real response. I'm like, that's it. I watched Die Hard a lot, and there was something about the ability for one person to change the tide of events. They took a responsibility, and they took it personally, and they were really motivated to make sure that Hans and the rest of his, patriarchal crew of degenerate, idiot, terrorist German idiots were going to take over Nakatomi Plaza. And it was a wonderful film. It was a simple movie from a simpler time. But everything about it is fun and purposeful, and it goes into the sort of philosophical arc of the monomyth, which is, if you've read Homer, any bit of the Homer Iliad and the Odyssey, the heroic arc that people take on responsibility for events, and they're purposeful in their application of demonstrable heroism. They take on personal risk on behalf of others, and hopefully, there's a good outcome at the end.
Right. Because
it could have gone disastrously wrong, the plot line for that, at least quite a few times. But you got John McClane just kind of gutting his way through with bloody feet and a old, at the time it was a modern, but an old beat up Beretta 9mm, which I hate now, but back then it was super cool, right? Which was also the gun used by Private Vasquez and Aliens as they killed the last alien in Lieutenant Gorman. I will talk about aliens. Get me off this topic. Yeah.
I'll switch it for you.
All right.
So, the Marine uniform inspired you to be a Marine. Die Hard inspires you to go into law enforcement. But what is that bucket list item that you haven't experienced yet that you still want?
I have not gotten a fake cop yet. That's like there's two things that I haven't encountered yet. A poacher, I haven't arrested a poacher, and I haven't arrested a fake cop. I cannot wait to get like pulled over by a fake cop. I just can't. I don't know why. I just can't wait.
Now, do you have much of that in Kansas though? Is it something you see?
I know it's a thing in New Mexico. I know it's so common in New Mexico. There's actually a term for it, right?
I don't know if there's a term for it, but I know it's been popping up here more. I've seen, but I don't know if there's a specific term they have for it. I'll have to check that one out myself.
But yeah, if I were to encounter like anyone showing credentials, like fake credentials, that'd be Christmas morning for me.
So the question is, would you react as Sheriff Eric Kirsch, or would you pretend to be a standard civilian who doesn't know anything about it and just check their approach?
Well, it depends. Give me more context. Like if I was at work, oh yeah.
No. If you're just driving down the road and someone pulls you over for a traffic infraction and.
Well, okay. So if I'm driving, say, another state, and I get pulled over and something's really, really off, I will probably. I'm going to be scared at that point. I'm probably going to use any lawful self-defense measures that I can, because it takes a lot of huevos to do that, to pull someone over, and I don't know what that person's intent is, right? I mean, like
right.
I'm going to pull over in deference to their authority, but if it's a false law enforcement officer, I don't know if this guy's trying to abduct me, or I don't know, right? I mean, It's probably not for good reasons. So yeah, I'd probably draw down on them and put them on the ground, without hopefully doing anything and use of force up, but put them in handcuffs and then call 911, just be a good witness. But I wouldn't just like do what he tells me to do. If it's very overt and obvious that it's not a legitimate law enforcement officer, yeah, there's no way I'm just going to go along with it. And go,
but I didn't know if you'd actually go along for the comedy aspect of it until you get to a point.
I think at a certain point, comedy ends and you got to go to work, right? if there's a fake cop trying to pull people over, yeah, there's something. And that's how those damn serial killer shows start off, right? It's like, right? I'm not waiting around for jokes. I'll joke later when we're safe, But right now, no. Hey, honey, lock the doors. I'll be right back. Call 911. That's scary stuff.
So that certainly would create a challenge, but for yourself, and even though you are a sheriff's officer, and you could still be put in situations that are alarming, that could be scary, it could be frightening. But let me ask you, for going to the personal side of things, is there an experience that you have had during your career where a personal struggle, a personal challenge you had to contend with, that you're like, wow, I'm having to navigate this real personal challenge while still being a police officer, showing up every day? Like, what is something you've gone through that you can explain to us that you've experienced and how you navigated it?
Yeah, I got walloped self-induced alcoholism when I was in the Marine Corps, when I was an NCIS special agent. I lost 13 of my best friends over 10 years. 11 were killed in action and 2 committed suicide, including one of my teammates and my roommate. And so I started drinking, and I never got in trouble with work or the law, but ended my first marriage. I was in a tremendous amount of internal pain, and that was 3 years of my life I kind of lost to it. And I was still working, got promoted. I poured everything into work. I justified my drinking because I didn't, at the time, this was back in maybe 2012, 2014, 15. We come from a drinking culture anyway, and it's socially acceptable. But I'm glad it was limited to just booze. But yeah, I've been through the ringer. I drank so hard I got pancreatitis from alcohol-related pancreatitis, and that same thing happened to Duff McKagan, the bassist from Guns N' Roses, and he's got a horrible story. And it's eerily similar because pancreases aren't much different one from the other. But when you drink to the point of the pancreas it creates the digestive enzymes that help break down food in your stomach. And it gets to the point where it's so inflamed it activates and it eats itself. So it's like having a white hot poker in your upper abdomen, and didn't just get it once. I had it 2 times, 2 episodes of it, and it was brutal. So that not being able to process stress, life stress, war stress, whatever it is, trauma is trauma is trauma, and the absolute wrong answer is to isolate and self-medicate. But not that long ago in our history, we didn't talk about it much.
No, you didn't. No, it wasn't a topic at all.
We never did. It was taboo. I didn't feel comfortable telling many people. I had some really, obviously really good friends that I could talk to about it, and they were drinking too. So like, hey, you're having trouble with drinking? Come on over, let's drink and talk about it. All right. So it took a bit of two things. It took people in my life, notably my better half, who gave me an ultimatum. She said, it's either booze or we're done. And I said, at first it was like, I don't know, I think I could be okay. I could do the whole Mel Gibson and Lethal Weapon and live in a trailer with a German Shepherd and, be that, in pain, heroic idiot. Or I could say, what I ended up doing was saying, you're right, and I was ready. A lot of times with families that are wrestling with people in addiction, whatever it is, you can't fix them. They have to they can't fix themselves, but they have to get to a point where that person agrees that they're ready, and then they go through with it.
Yeah, it's a change you can't force on someone else.
You can try, but it's a choice that people have to make. And I switched Jack Daniels for San Pellegrino. I swapped them out. I've been sober over 8 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was outstanding.
Yeah. And now I'm so moved by other people's stories, and I have something I tell this to people when it's appropriate, when I arrest people for different things, and I can tell that they're long-term enthusiasts of certain things, predominantly methamphetamine or alcohol. And, I can say to them, I've been through this too, because, a lot of times this conversation is predicated by someone saying, you don't know what my life is like. I'm like, you're right, but I know about addiction. I know what I'm an alcoholic, and I've been sober 8 years, and I went to AA meetings initially, and then I just ended up not going. I didn't need it. The only thing that really separates me from, I think, most people is I'm not super smart. I'm not super good looking. I do have a lot of self-discipline. I've always had a lot of self-discipline, and the evidence that my life was better without drinking was vastly more apparent than when it was when I was drinking. So it was, and I was tired, and I was ready, and I was just, I opened myself up again to, it's okay to give up in a good way sometimes. And I have a wonderful family, and I've got wonderful friends, and I had people that loved me enough in my life to tell me that I had a problem, and I was, but those to answer your question, that's one big thing that I've integrated into my life as what else, because life is tough, man, and there's no shortage of challenges regardless of your age or experience. So that's one less thing I have to worry about now. So.
And the story of that goes with it, like that you're utilizing it to help suspects that you're working with, individuals who make great criminal acts, right? Those individuals aren't law enforcement officers, but they are also susceptible to alcoholism and other forms of addiction, and for individuals who might be listening that hearing your words are saying, maybe I should seek help, maybe I should, what direction or advice or guidance would you give them just to start to take that path, just from your own personal experience, not from a clinical experience?
Tell them to listen to their feelings, listen to their own conscience. People know, and it's a hard thing, especially when you're in a position of disadvantage, when you're already in a very weakened state emotionally or physically, even, or spiritually, and you're confused and you're angry and you're scared and you're in pain. And there's this sense of selfishness too. There really is. When I was drinking, I was very self-righteous, and I used to I've solved this many crimes, and I've been on X amount of deployments, and why aren't other people in as much pain as I'm in? And I remember driving years ago. I was coming back, I think, from Afghanistan, and we were driving in Old Town Alexandria, Virginia. It's like a bar district, and I saw these people celebrating, and I was thinking to myself, what do you have to celebrate? You didn't fight in Afghanistan. You know what it was like? It was madness. And like now in retrospect, how incredibly stupid and dumb, and wrong that way of thinking was. But that's what happens when you're in pain. You're not very pleasant when you, like, say your arm is broken. You're not going to be all like interested in like going out to a club and having a time.
Right.
If your arm is broken, right? Because you're in pain and you become very defensive and guarded. It's the same thing when your heart's broken, or if your mind is getting broken, or if you're like you've got the hook of addiction in you. Period. It's tough to have awareness or wisdom when you're trying to just not drown overall. So yeah. So for folks that are ready, just roger up, and put when you're coming out, breaking the surface of the water, put your thumb out and put your hand out. There's going to be someone there. I'm happy to talk to. I've talked to, I've had, I can't say dozens, but at least a dozen plus people in the last 2 years reach out from the Facebook audience that I've talked to and help them connect them with local services where they're at. And of probably the dozen plus, I've probably helped legitimately at least 4 of them out, which is
That's awesome.
Which is great. Which is great. I wish it was all of them, but if I can get, and one locally, I won't say her name, but I talked to her a couple of days ago, and she's a person that was in a really, really bad spot in life, and like we treated her like a human being, and she's been sober for 2 years now off of very hard drugs. She's got her life back. She's got her family back. She's thriving. She's healthy, and that's the power of just the gesture of offering that simple human respect. Because I've had her in handcuffs before, back in the day, and now she's alive again. It's like seeing an old house that was broken down that you would be okay with tearing down, and instead you invested everything that you had, and then you can assist them in investing within themselves again, and feeling that sunlight back into, filling them full of sunlight again, and reminding them like, hey, it's not all storm clouds. This will pass. You're worth fighting for. So we've had some local amazing success stories just by giving those. Like even on Facebook, we've had some people that we've requested that they come in to surrender, and I'm cheering them on. I'm like, hey, I'm rooting for you. I had a lady 2 weeks ago. She had an arrest warrant, and she walked into my office here, and she goes, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I have a warrant. I'm like, hey, good to see you. And I gave her a bottle of Pellegrino and some Girl Scout cookies. And I said, just go up the elevator to the jail and surrender. She's like, oh my God, thank you so much. Nice to meet you. And I was like, lawfully I could have put her in handcuffs, but like, what's the point? She came in, She came in. Yeah, it's great. We have no local warrants right now, and it's been going on 3 weeks, and that's something to celebrate for me at least. So yeah.
No, that is really impressive. I said, and it's not just your journey, like I said, but you've extended that grace to others who have a journey to go through themselves, overcoming, like I said, whatever the addiction might be. Like methamphetamines, could certainly be more challenging than alcohol, but alcohol is probably more accessible to some folks, right?
Sure.
So it's just a matter what it is. So I appreciate you sharing that. So you've been given some advice to individuals and guidance, but is there a piece of advice that you maybe probably received when you were younger that you didn't utilize? That you said, if I had to go back and say I was told this several times as a kid or as a young adult and I never followed it, that would be helpful.
Yeah, don't go in the military. I'm serious. I went to an all boys prep school in North Jersey. At my graduation, they'd read off the colleges that everyone was going to, and my parents were sitting behind a couple, and they would read off the names, John Smith, Brown University, Paul Rutledge the Fourth, Harvard University, Eric Kirsch, Marine Corps Scholarship, the Citadel, and this couple in front of my parents. The wife turned to her husband and said, "What a waste!" Right? So, but I had plenty of people telling me not to go into the military. So here, I'm being a hypocrite, but don't go in the military. I'm just joking. If you want to, but don't go in the military. Don't do it. Don't do it.
How did your parents take that idea, though, of you
Terrible.
choosing? Okay.
My mom more than my dad. My dad was very proud of me, but my mother was understandably very worried. And I get it. I get it now. Now as a parent myself, I fully understand. And even when I attend my daughter's boxing matches, it's rough. It's rough watching both those athletes, those young girls, punch each other in the body and the head.
Yeah.
Because it's like you want to jump up there and intervene, but it's something that they have to do. But
Yeah, and it's the tough part, like that, because they said once we become parents, we start to realize what our parents used to think.
sure.
And in times are the same thing. Like when you went into the Marine Corps, we were in conflict. So your mom probably knows.
Well, not at
My son's been
first.
listening.
Yeah, not at first. So I came in and I started in 2000. So I was a sophomore in college when 9/11 happened,
Okay.
and a few of my classmates that were scholarship recipients in the days and weeks after disenrolled from the program.
Really?
Yeah, and at the time I was all again young and motivated and a true believer, and I held it against them for a long time. One of them disenrolled from the scholarship program but still graduated because we're not a military academy. Not everyone that graduates from the Citadel goes into the military. It's about half a class. But I looked at 9/11 as like our Pearl Harbor.
Right.
And if I hadn't been a scholarship recipient, or ROTC scholarship recipient, I would have gone in anyway, regardless, wartime or not. It's just the way I was built. And I'm not a badass at all. I just felt like, America's an amazing country. It's the greatest country on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I just lucked out. I hit the historic lottery being born here in the time we were born, and I wanted to give back. So, but it was strange. But yeah, especially with my eagerness to, like, Marines were a different breed anyway. I feel like a piece of shit because I didn't do 6 deployments. I'm serious. It's weird. It's like I had to almost fight to go to Afghanistan. I had a few Marines at the headquarters elements. It wasn't a big deal, but they were like, "You're assigned to the NCI's field office in D.C. Why you want to jump on this 4-month deployment to Afghanistan?" Because I was scared to death that I wouldn't be a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan. I didn't want to be that guy that only went to Iraq 4 times or whatever. I needed to go to Afghanistan too. It's insane, but that's just the way I'm built, which I think made me good for the different roles I've had in life, right?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And you each one of those experiences, I should say, you brought with you, and you probably learned different things that you went through in Afghanistan than Iraq. And you even give the example before we talked about the beards. Yes, they have been in Iraq too, but in Afghanistan, it is a different culture than Iraq. And so different experiences, different things you saw, different things you heard. They shaped who you are, right? So
yes,
I think that definitely it's something when you reflect back. Like I said, you look at everything. I just wanted to have that extra one, but it actually probably, you may not be at a point exactly what it is, but it probably had some kind of profound impact on you that you're living with today.
Yeah, good and bad. Good and
right.
bad.
Yeah.
I think if I had done just the one deployment, which was the most kinetic, the worst one, we lost a lot of good people. I think if I had just done the one deployment, I would have been okay overall. 7 months, that would have been something that you could have reintegrated easier with. But because I've got friends that have 9, 10, 11 deployments, and I've got other friends that have one deployment, but they were there for 18 months back during the surge days. So I don't know, it kind of depends on what happened during those time periods, and where you were and what you did. And I mean, here's another evolution of thought that I've had since even the last 10 years. I used to rag on like drone pilots and their claims of like PTSD, and used to be all self-righteous and they're drone pilots. They, how could they have PTSD? What a bunch of losers. Can't tell you how wrong I was about that, because after evolving as a person and dedicating some thought to it, imagine leaving your house every morning and going to your office, and that happened to be a Air Force base, and you're manning a console with a behind an autonomous Predator drone with Hellfire missiles, and you're conducting ISR, and you're watching a target location, and you're watching for, I don't know, 8 to 12 hours a day for weeks or months, like the pattern of life somewhere in the world on a target for weeks, and you get familiar with the comings and goings of people, and maybe they have livestock, maybe you see children there, and then one day you get a call to press the button, and then you have to go home, and you got to go to a PTA meeting. You don't think that's going to mess up a decent person, right?
Honestly, Sheriff, I've actually never thought about that part of it. But yeah, because like I said, the whole element you said, they're watching people's lives. I'm not saying they're developing a connection with them, but they have an understanding of who they are. Like I said, and they are going to see possibly children and livestock. They're seeing them live an everyday normal life.
Right.
And then they're gone at the push of your button.
So how do you consolidate yourself after? How do you not judge yourself poorly, even in the most optimal scenarios? I think a lot of the injuries that were sustained, and I can speak, from my own experiences at least, the moral injury that comes with, the things that you participated in, and not like, I'm not talking about like war crimes or anything like that.
Right, yeah.
But we were on a census patrol, and we were asking locals about foreign fighters, and have any of you seen any foreign fighters? And I'll never forget this older Iraqi comes up to the interpreter, and he nods his head, and he says he agreed that he saw foreign fighters, and we asked him who and where they were, and he pointed at us, and he goes, you. And it was like, as a 23-year-old lieutenant, he was right. You have that awareness of like, oh my God, you're right. We are foreign fighters, and we were looking for like Algerians and Yemenis and other fundamentalists that were pouring into Iraq through Syria at the time to come join the insurgency in Al Anbar province. But having that education, the unpleasant reality of, oh shit, this guy's right. I'm not from here. I'm not from down the street. I'm from across the ocean, right? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we meet the definition of those that we espouse to be an enemy of. So how can we philosophically not, argue that maybe we are the enemy within ourselves as well? It's just one of those things. I think for me at least, it was a priority to examine. They're tough questions. They really are. They're tough questions. But if you want to be purposeful and you want to fit into a society, you better know your role and have an understanding of what that is. And you better be careful about who you decide to place labels on, or to be confident, or overconfident. Like the trend recently was like the Dunning-Kruger effect. Dunning-Kruger meaning like having the most amount of confidence with the least amount of knowledge, and how that's applied. Earlier we talked about media and how like everybody wants, no side in history ever thought they were the bad guys, right? It's a natural thing. I grew up thinking that America was awesome, and Rambo was a documentary, right? Like Schwarzenegger, yeah, every movie he was in, it was like found footage, right? Of him just, and it's complicated. I mean, Rambo 3 was dedicated to the brave Mujahideen holy warriors of Afghanistan, right? You remember that?
Yes.
That's the end credits of Rambo 3 in Afghanistan, where he's got to save Colonel Troutman from his Mujahid or Soviet captors. And like, whoa, we messed that up. And then you watch Charlie Wilson's War when you're an adult, and then you work for different companies like or intelligence services, and you're like, are we the good guys? Man, I don't know. That's a damn tough question, But you better be honest, and you better be prepared to be enlightened, I guess. Right?
Well, Clint Eastwood's movie Heartbreak Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching it many times and then looking it up. It's not completely true. I mean, it's based on the aspects of what happened in Grenada, but we watch those movies, like I said, and at some level you believe there's a truth to them, especially when you're younger. And then you learn more and more.
Well, we desperately seek that. We desperately want to be validated. I mean, as children, we want nothing more than the attention and the love of our parents. Yeah. And as you form your identity as a person, you try to gather as many noble and virtuous characteristics and traits as you can. And you want to be desperate, you thirst, and you yearn to be on the side of good. You know, you don't want to be Darth Vader. You want to be Luke Skywalker. And then you have moments where you think that maybe Darth Vader wasn't a bad guy. Maybe maybe the Empire just wanted some damn peace and quiet, and then these terrorist hippies show up. They're blowing stuff up, and they're interrupting the interstellar trade, right? You know, so there's these. I think it's the nuance. That's where the real meat is. It's easy to just team up and go, the Yankees suck or the Red Sox suck, and you know I love the Yankees because my dad does. But I realized later when the Yankees weren't playing the Red Sox, I was rooting for the Red Sox because they're not much different than Yankees fans. They're psychopaths. They're quick to fight. You know, they love their team at a fanatical level, right? We're more similar than we are separate, right, or different.
Yep.
So
I'll tell you, the first time I went to Boston, first or second time, I had this idea that I can't coexist around Red Sox fans. And long story short, the people of the town holding doors open, polite, saying hello, saying thank you. Like I'm looking around saying, these people are actually nicer than New Yorkers.
amazing.
Yeah, I was actually pleasantly surprised because, again, we had a perception of the residents of Boston being how you see the fans. So,
Sure. Just
and
like
again,
interrogations, right, overseas. I'm not talking about criminal interrogations here, but captured AQI, Al-Qaeda and Iraq fighters, foreign fighters, or Taliban fighters, or the captured ISIS guys I was dealing with in 14 and 15.
Okay.
I had way, as an individual, way more in common with them at certain levels than I ever did with the people that sent us there. They're
unbelievable.
They're willing to die for their team, like especially so the Taliban guys, for instance. It takes a lot of courage to fight the Marine Corps conventional in open battle. It really does. Like I would not want to mess with the Marine Corps. I would never do that. It's a suicide mission, man. So the fact that these dudes would have stand-up gunfights with us, like in broad daylight, respect. It doesn't mean I'm going to put you on the Christmas card list, but like you're willing to die for your cause. Me too. You're with your homies. You're ride and die homies. Me too. You guys like guns and Toyota pickups and you know, also like crazy good music. Me too. You guys, you know. It's I think it's warrior culture in a nutshell, but it was weird seeing the similarities and seeing parts of yourself in like the spirit. And again, I don't agree with their fundamental tenets and their philosophies, right? I obviously, but you know, like I said before, no one wants to be the bad guy, so it gets shady. It gets tough. Yeah.
You know, people have always questioned when I made the comment that, you know, whether it's Osama bin Laden or if it was Saddam Hussein or if it was Napoleon. They said, you know, take it for what it's worth. They were good leaders in the sense that they could actually get people to follow them and believe in their cause and go with them. It doesn't mean we believe that they are good leaders in their what they're trying to do, right? It doesn't mean that we believe in their mission. But to get, like you said, a group of individuals to stand up and fight for the cause toe-to-toe with the Marine Corps, that's led by somebody. Somebody has inspired them to do this, and who are we to say they're wrong for standing up for the cause? And is that what they're supposed to be doing? I mean, if someone came in, invades our country, what do? We stand up to fight, defend ourselves.
Scott, would you say Colorado invaded New Mexico, right? and they cordoned off your neighborhood, and you had to pay a tax to the Colorado State Militia every time you wanted to leave your neighborhood. At what point would you start, you know, sharpening knives and getting ready to?
Exactly.
Pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
Or if something happened to one of your family members because of foreign object coming in and disrupting your normal day-to-day, interrupting your life, interrupting the way you saw the world. You know, it's tough. I think a lot of veterans, and I know we're getting off topic a bit, but it kind of goes into the way I see law enforcement too. You have to scrutinize your existence. All the things, like everything's not okay, and don't be okay with the assumption that you're doing it great either. You know, I've had criticisms just on some of the Facebook posts from a couple locals. I had one lady, I won't say her name, she's awesome. She was all super mad. She's like, it's unprofessional, and you guys are using too much comedy and X, Y, and Z. And I was like, thank you for giving me the invitation to introduce myself to you. So I went to her house and I said, "Hi, my name is Eric. Nice to meet you." And she was so nice. And we left. She just hadn't met me yet, and we left as friends. But now, and she's now like a fan of the page. But she had the backbone to critique me, and I said, "Thank you for improving my ability to. I appreciate your feedback. I really give a shit. I really give a damn." And it's important for you to analyze and self-evaluate continuously, and never be. I love it when people correct me. I surround myself with smart people that disagree with me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a dangerous thing to think that there's a lot of people that have written their own endings poorly. They cheered everyone around them plus themselves cheered the ending all the way to the ground, right? And because they didn't pay attention to the people that rightfully had the ability to go, hold on a minute, we're flying too low, we gotta raise our altitude, or we don't have enough gas to get to where we're supposed to be landing at. Or for law enforcement to be okay with the traditional, well, nothing's broken, right? Or like, no, I don't want to hear that about that new thing. I don't want to hear, oh, that's for wussies, that's for the weak, Or I've heard some older officers still talk shit about body cameras or M4s and patrol vehicles. Why isn't a shotgun enough? Like, well, tell me more. Explain yourself. Well, I don't need to explain myself. That's when I stopped paying attention, right? Yeah. The New Testament quote, "Don't cast pearls before swine." If people are not listening to you, stop talking to them. Yeah. And it's important to me, at least, to be critical, to self-evaluate. If I'm getting it wrong, I tell my coworkers that I don't call them like they're not my subordinates. I'm not subordinate. They're not subordinate to me or to anybody. The only thing we're subordinate to is the Constitution, God, and our citizens. But I'll be damned if I exist with a gun on my hip where I'm super confident about something that we're doing wrong, right? So when it comes to our role as a nation for foreign policy, we're slowly not getting too political. We're recalibrating that, and as a role as law enforcement, I lead under the banner and flag of the mentality of being a peace officer, as being not a cop. Policing has its place, but we need to revisit the idea, and I have the idea and the passion that I'm here to be more of a coach and less of a referee. Like, I don't know what's best for you. I want to work with you, not against you. I'm not at war with society, right? This is our country. This is our community. The war on drugs, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, that's probably a longer conversation for another time. But who are the casualties? People, neighborhoods, economies. And, I'm here to unite, not to divide. We can't do anything without that mentality. We just can't. I'm sorry.
No, and I think, I talk about this podcast is to show that, there are positive law enforcement news stories, and that, officers are very similar to the people they serve. Take away the badge, right? The actual individual life experiences. And one of the things that we talk about is the positive law enforcement stories we share are not the policing stories, because everyone hears about policing. It's the service stories.
Sure.
Because officers, whether people like it or not, perform a lot more acts of service than they ever realize. It's like the fireman who signed up to be a fireman, but then in a town that doesn't have fires. So they end up being EMT, paramedics showing up to car accidents. Police officers do certainly have to enforce the law, but you guys do so many acts of service that it almost shouldn't be protect and serve, but serve and protect, right? It's almost where you end up serving more. And like you said, and the coaching aspect is unique, because you went back to the story you said earlier, is that you meet an individual who's experiencing something in life, and you share your personal experience to help them. You're not sharing that story because you want to arrest them. You're sharing that story to help serve them and make them better, give them a chance, right? And I think people often fail to realize that aspect of it, that yes, you're there to enforce the law, but there's a whole other side of the job that is probably more impactful on the lives of the people you serve than the criminal apprehension sometimes.
I'm here to innovate, not to regulate.
Yeah, it's very different. It really is. But I want to stay on the topic, though, because mental health awareness is real. Mental health challenges are real, right? And it's starting to gain more and more traction. We do know that, unfortunately, we lose more officers from their own hands than from felonious offenses, 3 to 4 times as many, right? But this is something that you also have a passion for, right? And it's unfortunate what we're seeing, but you have taken a lead in that, and you have made it, I think, somewhat of a crusade for yourself, or to be involved with. So tell us more, what brought that to you? Like, what got you more involved in helping the mental health awareness in law enforcement, and then also where you think it's going and how you think it's evolving?
If you liked this episode, follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast. Provide us your feedback in the comments and leave us a rating or review. We truly appreciate your opinion. And then follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook to get all the latest updates. Remember, you can always find places that will share negative law enforcement news stories. But here, at Your Positive Lens, you will only find your positive law enforcement news stories. Once again, I'm your host, Scott T. Thanks for listening, and we'll capture you on the next Your Positive Lens.